Find books your kids will want to read with engaging stories for kids, youth, and young adults, and nonfiction books to encourage and guide them on a purpose-driven life. The Wednesday Bookmark on CHRI.
Eric Geiger is a senior pastor and the former senior vice president for Lifeway Christian Resources. He has authored and co-authored several books, but his favorite co-author is by far his 11-year-old daughter, Evie. Together, they have written The Quokkas, The Snails, and The Land of Happiness. It's a story of two families who live very similar lives, but one is full of joy and happiness while the other isn't. Eric is on with us now. Hi, Eric.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
So before we get into the story, Eric, can you tell our listeners, what is a Quokka and what did you learn about them?
Honestly, I did not even know what a Quokka was until we wrote the book. So we have these two different families that we describe in the book, and we used animals to describe them. And so we just Googled the happiest animal that there is, and a Quokka is generally known as, just because if you Google, you'll see these pictures of these animals smiling, and they're in Australia, and they're just known as, they look extremely happy. I don't know if they're actually happy on the inside, but they look happy on the outside. And so we just use them to represent the family that was filled with joy.
So some parents use sticker charts, and both families in this story do too, but in different ways. Explain what your family learned about sticker charts that helped inspire this story.
Yeah, the sticker chart really is the thread that runs through the book, and it's been a parable with our family. I wrote this book with my youngest daughter, Evie, but the sticker chart parable in our family began with my older daughter, whose name is Eden. She came home one day from a friend's house. This is when we lived in Miami. I was a pastor in Miami. And that friend, great family, they had a sticker chart, and they were getting, stickers on their charts every time the kids were, every time that they obeyed or did something special. And so Eden wanted one, and we put one on the refrigerator, and we started noticing pretty quickly that she was obeying only to get a sticker. She was trying to fill up her chart, and we decided that we did not want a reward to be the motivation for her to obey, but for her to obey because she loves her mom and dad, because she's grateful. And so we decided to go away from the sticker chart, but before we did, after Eden went to bed, I filled the entire chart. The next morning she comes in, she sees that the chart is completely filled, and she's excited because she gets to get a toy. But we had a conversation about, this is exactly what the Bible teaches that Christ does for us, that Jesus does for us, that we could never fill our chart. We could never be good enough to earn his love, but he gave himself for us, and now we obey him, not because we're trying to get him to love us, but because he already loved us. And so we use that story with our kids. They're 13 and 11 now, but all in their elementary years, that was a story that we kept going back to, and we still talk about it. So that kind of became the story that distinguishes the two families in the book. One family gets stickers for a toy. The other family has all their stickers, and so they are filled with joy because now they live in response to a full chart. They're not living for a full chart.
And that grace that comes from God and just accepting that is really what the land of happiness represents. And you also actually made the brother and sister Quokka, Kenton and Kaylee, you gave them disabilities. What was the message that you were trying to bring here?
A couple of things, and they really represent some of the disabilities, struggles that are in our family, and but simultaneously, we wanted to be sure that it was clear that the land of happiness does not mean this side of heaven, that everything is perfect, that there's struggles here, but that the joy we have from God is greater. In fact, the struggles that he gives can actually be even a gift to help us enjoy what he has provided even more. So, Kenton in the book, he has a limp, but that helps him enjoy creation a bit more because he walks more slowly and enjoys everything that is around him. So land of happiness doesn't mean everything is perfect when you have a full sticker chart, but it does mean you get to enjoy what God has given you more.
Yeah. I mean, the snails base their lives, like you said, really on performance and earning their acceptance. And I want to ask, I guess it's a two-part question. One is, how does living this way negatively affect how they experience life? And then part two, maybe, how can parents help protect their kids from living that way?
Right. It was really fascinating having this conversation with my daughter, who I wrote the book with. We spent months working through. I didn't write one word without her. We did it all together. And in her experience, I think as an 11-year-old, 10 when we first were writing, I think she faces culturally more pressure to earn and achieve than I remember facing when I was 10. So, I mean, if you Google preteen anxiety or, pre-adolescent angst, I mean, there's just so many articles on the pressure that the kids in the culture today are under to perform with school, with athletics, with being popular. And so it is a burdensome way to live for anybody. But for a child to live that way in the midst of all of their psychological and physical development, it's a lot of pressure for all of us. But they're at such a critical age and an impressionable age, and so it's a really cruel way to live. And the good news is that in an exhausted world, that the grace God offers us is so refreshing, that we already are approved because of what He did, not because of anything we're going to do at school today. And so the snails, they live like the culture today lives. They live, and they think they're accomplishing, right? But they think they're moving fast, but they're really moving kind of slow. And that describes the culture so well. We often think we're accomplishing much, but really we aren't, and we're so unsatisfied. Mm-hmm. And so, as the wisdom writer in the Old Testament said, it's meaningless, meaningless, meaningless. We're moving around, and we're not really accomplishing much anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we see the Quokka kids. I mean, and this is what I want to ask too, in terms of the inspiration that they can lend to young readers here about how to address or how to treat or how to associate with the snail kids. Because once kids understand what it means to live in that joy and in that grace, how can they be a light for others?
That's great. Great question. We talk about that a lot with our kids. So it clearly does not mean to be judgmental of because how people who are living for approval are living is the normal way to live. And so the only way we're going to live opposite of that is if by God's grace we see a different way. And so the way that we show a different way, the way that we can show there's a different way, is that we are gracious people, that we are kind because He's been kind to us, that we are loving because He's been loving to us, that we are joyful because we've received His joy. It's not going and telling people that the land of sadness is this horrible land and you need to come over to the land of happiness. It's showing them a better way to live.
Mm-hmm. I wish Evie was here because I would ask her this, but what was it like writing together as father and daughter, just as we wrap up?
It was so fun. I've written other books with friends that I love and respect so much, but doing it with your daughter, it was a blast. She'd wake up in the mornings, and before school, we'd probably write 20 or 30 minutes. We took a trip together where we worked on the book in the mornings, and it was the conversations that we had. It was so fun and so fulfilling. I would do it all over, and a lot of work, but I would do it all over in a heartbeat just for the time that I was able to enjoy with her.
I'm sure she feels exactly the same.
Yeah, thank you.
What is the ultimate message that you hope readers will take away from this book?
Grace is received, not achieved. Real life is received, not achieved. And the offer is there for real life, for grace, for forgiveness. It's there, and it's received, not achieved.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, it's a great kids book. It's called The Quokkas, the Snails, and the Land of Happiness. Adorable illustrations, too. The father-daughter duo, Eric and Evie Geiger. Eric, thank you so, so much for your time.
I'm honored. Thanks for getting me on.
To hear this interview again, or to discover more great books your kids will want to read, visit bookmark.chri.ca. The Wednesday Bookmark